Hello, welcome to Pioneers for Hope CalFresh video tutorial. My name is Ginny Tran and I am the CalFresh Outreach Coordinator under H.O.P.E, and this will be a step-by-step video tutorial for how to apply for CalFresh. This video is meant to be a video tutorial for those who want to complete the CalFresh application on their own. This video won't be covering eligibility, but the application itself does sort of act as like an eligibility pre-screening. About halfway through the application, it'll tell you whether or not you may or may not be eligible for CalFresh. But if you have any specific questions about eligibility or you would like one-on-one application assistance, then you can schedule an appointment for our office hours on BayAdvisor. Our office hours are held on Mondays through Fridays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And they are both virtual and in person, so you can choose the option that's most convenient or accessible to you. So for this demonstration, I'll be applying as sort of the average college student who, let's say, rents an apartment with a few roommates and gets CalFresh, Cal Grant A and B. Those are typically the most common college students that we come across. And so, oops, not that slide. So this is the website getcalfresh.org. This is the online application for CalFresh, and it should take about 15 to 20 minutes to complete. If you are trying to apply on your own, please make sure that you are using our referral link. This helps us track our data, but also lets us confirm that your application has been submitted. And so the URL for that is getcalfresh.org/s/CSUEB. And so this is what the application looks like. And so you're going to select Apply Now. And so this sort of runs through how CalFresh works. So you'll submit an application, you'll submit your proof of verification documents at the end. Afterwards, you'll receive a phone call interview, and then in about 30 days, you'll receive either your notice of approval or denial, which if you are approved, you'll get an EBT card for your CalFresh money. Alrighty, so the first couple of slides just sort of asks for some basic information. And so I'm going to be applying as a student who lives in Alameda County. And so I'm going to put the zip code for our Hayward campus, 94542. Of course, if you're applying by yourself, you can just put whatever address you live in. And then it asks you what language you want to apply in. I'm going to select English. And then it'll ask you for your name. So I'm going to write Jane Doe. If you prefer a different first name, you can always put that. And it is going to ask you for a proof of identification. So make sure that it matches with whatever you are submitting for that. And so this question is asking about your household. So the question is asking, who else do you usually buy or make food with? A common question that we get is, I live with roommates. Do I have to include them in my application? The answer to that is no. The application is concerned about who you regularly purchase and prepare meals with. And even if that does apply to your roommates, I would suggest that they apply on their own. This way you are receiving benefits for one person each, and so you would actually receive more money that way. You would also be receiving your own EBT card, which would be helpful if you go back home during the summer, if you're going back for like winter break, or if you eventually move away from each other. And so we usually recommend roommates to apply by themselves. There are something called mandatory household members, so this includes anybody you are married to and physically living with. This also includes any children under 22. And if you are a student and living with your parents, if you are under the age of 22, then you would have to include your parents in the application. And so this would also affect the income threshold that you would go by. If you are 22 or older and you are living with your parents, then you can apply by yourself. And as for like the roommates thing, you can have multiple CalFresh application or cases open under the same address. So no need to worry about that. So for me, I'm going to pretend that I do have roommates, but I'm not going to be applying with them, and I'll tell them to apply for themselves. If you do want to add another person, you would just click down here. Have I applied to CalFresh in the last year or so? I would select no. If you select yes, it'll ask you why you're reapplying again. Don't hesitate to select I want to submit a new application. Alrighty, so this is just confirming that we are submitting an application for Alameda County. And so the first question, one of the first questions is, do you get supplemental security income? Usually I tell people, if you don't know what this is, then you probably don't receive it. So a typical college student that I would help apply for benefits with usually says no to this. Are you 60 or older getting disability benefits? In this case, no. Is everybody on the application a US citizen? So to qualify for CalFresh, you must be a US citizen or a legal permanent resident. Unfortunately, international students, students with DACA, or undocumented students are ineligible for CalFresh. There are some immigrants who are eligible for CalFresh. This includes any green card holders, but a common question that we get is for international students. So in my case, I am a US citizen, so I will select yes. Are you a college student? I would select yes. This also includes graduate schools as well as vocational schools. And so this part of the application is confirming that you are a college student under the CalFresh definition. Don't be afraid to select none of the above for this. These also apply as sort of like eligibility requirements, so it's also a good thing if you select any of this, but basically don't be afraid to answer this question. If you're a graduating senior, the last semester of your school is actually one of the best times to apply for CalFresh, as this is actually one of the ways you can be eligible for CalFresh. But in my case, let's say I'm like a third-year student, so I select none of the above. So this is, so students have special requirements. Let's go through them. So basically, CalFresh policy was designed with college students in mind, and so if you are a student and you meet one of these requirements, this exempts you from the typical 20 hours a week working requirement that CalFresh has. So for me, when I was a college student, I did have an EFC of 0. I was eligible for a work study, and I also received Cal Grant A or B. You only need to meet one of these requirements. The more requirements can be helpful, but keep in mind that you do have to submit verification documents for each of them. But let's say all of these applied to me. If you are a student employee on campus, you would select I am in a college program that trains me for a job, or an LPIE. And so if you are a student employee on campus, or a research assistant, or a teaching assistant, please reach out to our office, CalFresh at East Bay. Our email address is csueastbay.edu, and you would request a verification document for being a part of an LPIE. We will be adding more programs in the future, but just keep that in mind. If you are a student employee, you can select this. Alrighty, and so it's asking if I live on on-campus housing. If you select yes, it's going to ask you if you have a meal plan that covers 11 or more meals per week. If you say yes, then that would deem you ineligible for CalFresh. But there are 2 meal plans on campus that have 10 and 5 meal plans, which would still allow you to be eligible for CalFresh. But I'm going to pretend that I am renting an apartment and that I don't live with my parents. If you select yes, I live with my parents, then it's going to ask you if you're 22 or older, or younger, I should say. And so this goes back to the household question about like whether or not I need to include my parents. But I live not by myself, but I live with roommates. So it's going to ask if I'm a seasonal or migrant farm worker. I'm going to say no. And then it's going to ask me for my income. And so if you, so let me rephrase that. CalFresh is concerned about any income that you've made within the past 30 days. And so you are going to be required to submit any pay stubs or any sort of proof of income made within the past 30 days. And so it's going to ask a couple of different questions just to sort of get through all of the sources of income. And so do you have a job? Sort of self-explanatory. If you're a student, work-study income does not count as income. And so if I had a job and it was work-study, I would actually report nothing. So when I was in college, I did work a work-study job, so I selected no for this application. There is some information about, the next question is about, let's say, self-employment. And so this includes a couple of different things: freelancing, independent contracting, self-employed work. This includes Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, any sort of gig economy job. If you own a small Etsy business, for example. And then if you also do any sort of babysitting, dog walking, cutting hair regularly that you receive income for, you would also submit, report that you have a job for that and report any income that you've made within the past 30 days. Have I lost a job in the past 30 days? I would say no. And then do I get unemployment benefits? So unemployment benefits do count as income in the CalFresh application. And if you do receive EDD or unemployment benefits, this would actually make you qualified for CalFresh. So please remember that unemployment benefits do count as income if you do receive this in the future. And then this page lists other examples of income. This includes Social Security, disability insurance, child support, alimony, military basic allowance for housing, VA benefits, workers' compensation, pensions, monthly cash from friends or family. This would be money that you receive regularly. So let's say you receive an allowance every first of the month from your parents. That would count as income. But if you just received, let's say, money for your birthday or money for Lunar New Year's, that wouldn't count as income since it was a one-time payment. Do you pay for court-ordered child support? So this is starting to go into expenses that you have. They use this and do some calculations to sort of, to figure out what your income is. I'm sorry. So do you pay for court-ordered child support? I would select no. And so this is going over all the information that you submitted in the past. So 0 income per month. And even though I do have a work-study job, because it is work-study, I'm not reporting that. I didn't lose a job. I don't receive unemployment. I don't get money from other sources. And I don't pay for child support. And you see how this is subtracting from your income? Yeah. So this looks correct. And so, like I said earlier, the application itself does act as an eligibility pre-screening. So it's telling me that I may be eligible for CalFresh. And now it's going to get into expenses and deductions. And so this will help determine how much benefits you will be receiving per month. Currently, I believe until April of 2023, each CalFresh household is entitled to the maximum benefit allotment, but in the future, they usually use your expenses, deductions, and income to determine how much benefits you receive per month. And so how much do you pay for rent and mortgage every month? So this would only include your share of rent. So let's say that I'm paying $850 for a double. I would just include that. If you're paying for a dorm, you would, let's see, I know that there are different plans or like ways that you can pay for your housing, but I believe sometimes it's paid in like just at the beginning of the semester. So if you pay in one transaction at the beginning of the semester, you would take that total that you're paying for housing and divide it by 4 months. And so that would be your monthly rent per month if you were to live in a dorm. Oh, and it's also, going back to the rent and mortgage, it's also okay to select 0 if you don't pay for anything. And so going into utilities, it's going to ask you if you pay for any utilities. This application, this website specifically, does not ask for any utility bills or proof of payment for utility bills. So you can select anything that's applicable to you, but don't be really afraid by this question. So I pay for, I think, water, sewage, and garbage. Do you pay for child or dependent care? So this includes babysitting, daycare, after-school care, adult daycare, or summer camp. In this situation, as a college student, I would select no. And so it's going to review the information that you submitted previously. So I pay $850 per month for rent, and I pay for water, sewage, and garbage. If you want to change your answers, you can go ahead and do that, but this looks correct to me. And so this question is asking me, does your household have less than $1,000 in cash and in the bank? And so they get this number from how much money you're paying for rent and as well as your expenses. This question is asking you how much money you have on hand, including your checkings account and savings account. This question does not affect whether or not you are eligible for CalFresh. This only is used to determine whether or not you qualify for expedited services. So if I were to select yes, then I may be qualified for expedited services, and this would mean that the county caseworker that is assigned to my case would have 3 days to process my case, even if I have or haven't submitted my verification documents yet. I understand that college students often get a big refund from financial aid, or get their loans, or have money saved up for tuition, and so what they have in their savings doesn't accurately reflect their lifestyle or cost of living. So don't be afraid about this question. It's just to see if you qualify for expedited services and does not determine your eligibility at all. In this case, I would select no. Cool. So it says that it looked at my income and expenses to help me get the largest benefit amount. And then it's going to ask a little bit of information. So this is the personal information stuff. And so this page will ask you for your name, your birthday. Oops. It will ask me for my gender, and then for your social security number. If you have one, please make sure that you include it. This is one of the ways that you can track your benefits. You need your social security number for that. But also, it's just helpful to know your social security number. And then it's going to ask me for my contact info. So part of the CalFresh application requires a phone call interview. So please make sure that you are putting the phone number that you reach the most, your mobile phone number. And it's going to ask you for it again because it is very important. And this will also ask you for your email. And I speak English and read English. Okay. I tried to game the system. Alrighty. So it asks you again what your current living situation is. I'm not sure why it's in this specific part of the application, but just choose whatever is applicable to you. And then it's going to ask you what is the name of your school. You don't have to type out the full CSU. You can just put CSU East Bay or CSUEB. And then it's going to ask me for where do I currently live. So I would put the address that you have at school. This is not like your permanent address, which is typically your parents' address. You would put the apartment that you live in or the mailbox that you have if you live in the dorms. But you are going to receive a lot of physical mail from DPSS or the Department of Social Services. All important notices and information is handled by physical mail. You will not receive an email about it. If you do receive a phone call, it's typically from your caseworker, but notices are done through mail. So I would choose a mailing address for a mailbox that you actually select or check often, I should say. I'm going to put the school address. So I live in Hayward. Is this the best address for you to receive mail in for the next 3 months? So if you don't have a mailbox that you can check often, or that you don't have, if you don't have access to a mailbox, you can also select a different mailing address. So if you have a friend who can help you out with that, that'd be great. You can also send it to your parents if they live close by, but you do have the option of putting a different mailing address. So I would say yes, send mail there. So again, you do need to complete a phone call interview to complete the CalFresh application. It's going to ask you if you have any time preferences, but more often than not, they don't typically follow this. So you can put whatever you want, but just be aware that they will call you when they have the availabilities. So I'm going to put after 12. So the phone call interview is very important. If you don't complete your interview, you will not complete the CalFresh application. Typically, they do send a notice in the mail notifying you when your appointment for your interview is occurring. So please make sure that you're checking your mail every single day after you apply for CalFresh, and make sure that you're picking up your phone on that day. Please also just make sure that you're picking up any phone call that you receive within the next 2 weeks after you apply for CalFresh. If you have an iPhone, please turn off Do Not Disturb. There's also a setting that blocks numbers from unknown callers, so make sure you turn that off as well. It is very difficult to reschedule in an interview, and oftentimes they just deny your application for missing this interview. So please make sure you pick up your phone. Okay. And then how can we remind you about your application? So these are reminders that are given by this website, getcalfresh.org. It's a part of Code for America, who built this website. So these are separate notifications from DPSS. They're just sort of helpful reminders to sort of be like, hey, did you submit your verification documents? Or you can submit your documents here. You can select yes or no for this. It doesn't matter too much. So I'll just select it's okay. Alrighty, and then it's going to send me a confirmation message and email. And then the next question is, do you want to designate someone to help you with your CalFresh application or benefits? So this question is usually for students with physical disabilities or invisible disabilities who require help buying groceries. And so you can add an authorized representative on your application. So think of it as like a Costco membership where you add somebody to your membership. They receive their own card and they can also use your membership to go to Costco. So the same thing applies here. If you add an authorized representative, they are able to use your benefits. And so this is important so that you don't get flagged for fraud, essentially. They will also receive their own EBT card. So you'll receive 2 cards. This will also give them the opportunity or the ability to speak to the county on behalf of you about your application. And so if you face any case issues, the authorized representative on your application can talk to them for you. Usually, students select no for this application, for this question. And then it's going to ask me, is there anything else that I would like to talk about my situation? So thankfully, this part of the application does give you a chance to elaborate anything that you haven't had a specific section for yet. So for example, a lot of people pay rent in cash. And so you would have the chance to say that I pay my landlord $850 per month in cash. So I don't have transactions for this. It's an informal living situation. I pay my landlord in cash. You can also do the same for if you had a job who pays you in cash. Like, I am a babysitter. I do about 10 hours of work per week, and my employers pay me in cash. And so anything like this, you would have a chance to explain. Another example would be that I have 2 jobs on campus. One of them is work study, the other one isn't. But on my paycheck, it has both of my jobs listed. So anything that you didn't have a chance to talk about that you feel like you would like your caseworker to know, please explain it in this in this box. And so then it's going to ask me the agreement that, nobody really reads the terms and conditions, but you can read through this. It's a summary of the application, essentially, but just select yes. I believe it also has a section about immigrants. And so if you are an immigrant applying for CalFresh, it's also just telling you that they would send your information to USCIS. And it also talks about fraud here, but just select I agree. So the next question is CSUEB and your CalFresh application. So it's going to ask if we can keep your contact information, as well as can CSUEB talk to the county about your application. Please select yes for both of these questions. This allows us to confirm whether or not your application has been successfully submitted. And we would only be able to tell this if you used our referral link, getcalfresh.org/s/CSUEB. But also, if you select yes to these questions, this will automatically generate a release of information form, which would allow our office to speak to the county on your behalf to solve any case issues that you had. And so the CalFresh application takes 30 days to process. It's a year-long certification. More than likely, you are going to face case issues. And if you would like our office to help you out with that, please select yes to these 2 questions. Alrighty, so then you're going to type your legal name to sign this application, and then you would sign and submit. So this is where I would stop, because then I would accidentally submit a useless and blank and demonstrative application to the county of Alameda, so I'm not going to do that. But just make sure that you sign your name and submit your application. So after this, I'm going to go back to the home page. And so after you submit your application, it's going to ask you for your verification documents. And so if you don't have them on hand, as in like during the time that you're applying for CalFresh, you can go back to the home page, scroll a little bit down, already started your application, and you would submit your documents. And so you would resubmit the information that you had before. And so I would be Jane Doe, my birthday, so let's see. So it asks for my social security number. So this is so that's why it asks for you for your social security number. That's how they link your CalFresh case to you. And so there's probably a lot of Jane Does who are born on January 1st. But if I inputted my social security number, it would make sure that it is redirecting me to my specific application. And so it's going to ask you for verification documents. I don't think this has a section about verification documents. But it is going to ask you for a couple of things. So one, you're going to need a copy of your ID. This is just any proof of identification. So it can be your driver's license, your state ID, or a passport, or your Bay card if you don't have the other three. And then it's going to ask you for any proof of income made in the past 30 days. And so you can submit any pay stubs. If you get paid through an app, you can take screenshots of that, of like Venmo or Zelle, for example. You can also take screenshots of your bank statements that show that you're getting this amount of money per month. And then proof of immigration status is for if you are an immigrant applying for CalFresh. It will also ask you for your proof of housing expenses. It's not required to submit, but it is very helpful to submit. Again, they use your expenses to calculate your actual income according to CalFresh. And so even though it's not required, highly recommend that you submit it. This would be your lease, for example. You would only submit the page that has like how much you're paying for rent, as well as your signature. If you are on a shared lease, and so like the total rent is like $4,500, but you're only paying $850, that's completely fine. You can also submit any like Venmo transactions, because that's how I used to pay for rent. If you pay informally through cash, then you would just write up a document, or you would type it in your application that you pay so and so each month in this amount of money in cash for rent. If you are a student, it's going to ask you student-specific verification documents. And so it's going to ask you for your financial aid award. And so this will show like your work study, as well as your Cal Grant A or B. If you selected that you had an EFC of 0, which is a temporary exemption until April 2023, it would also ask you for a separate verification document confirming that you have your EFC of 0. And these two can be found on my CSUEB on financial aids and awards and summaries. Just save it as a PDF and you can submit that. And then it's also going to ask you for a screenshot of your class schedule. And so this is just to prove that you are a student taking at least half units and are a student under CalFresh policy. And then if you have anything else that you would like to submit that is like specific to your case, you can go ahead and submit that as well. If you have any questions about this, or you think that like you have a lot of questions about your specific situation, or that you have or you would like any one-on-one assistance, you can go ahead and contact us. So we highly recommend that you schedule an appointment for BayAdvisor. This would allow us to confirm that you have submitted your application. You would get personalized assistance and just making sure that we're answering all of the questions that you have. Our office hours are from Mondays through Fridays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we offer both virtual and in-person office hours, so please select the option that's most convenient for you. You can also call our office at 510-885-4810, or email us or visit our office. We do accept walk-ins. The Student Health Center does require a mask, so please bring a mask. You can also check out our website for more information, or follow our Instagram for any sort of updates or news, or any sort of content around Pioneers for Hope and basic needs. But I hope this video tutorial was helpful for you. I understand that it was very long, so you can just skip around to the section that you need. But please let us know if you have any questions, and don't hesitate to reach out to our office or schedule an appointment for BayAdvisor. Thank you.